What's going on? What's going on? Jay Chantalancy here. Welcome to the Ripple Effect of Healing YouTube channel. Like I said, my name is Jay Chantalancy. I'm a certified emotion code energy healer practitioner, holistic wellness coach. Welcome to the Ripple Effect of Healing show. Tonight, we're on every night at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we talk about things like self-care, self-healing, and spirituality stuff. All right. So tonight's topic, I'm sure everyone could relate to this because everybody probably has done this multiple times. Okay. The title of this episode is crying. Okay, crying. Now, crying can be a sensitive topic for some, a hard topic for others, and I'm gonna go through a lot of the um, you know, health benefits, a lot of the science behind crying. Like, did you know that there are three types of tears that you cry? Didn't know that, did you? Well, I didn't either until I looked into it. But it's very interesting. But in this episode, we're going to focus on specifically one type, right? I'm going to talk about the other two, but tonight's, you know, live episode is about one specific type of tears, and those are emotional tears, right? We always cry when we feel emotional, right? And if you've already been following me on other platforms or seen my content, I'm all about healing, and feeling is healing, right? When we feel emotions, we are supposed to release that energy. And I always tell all of my clients, all of my students, all of the people that watch, my content, crying is a release of energy. It's a natural way our bodies release these energies, right? Or emotions, right? And emotions just means energy in motion. Now, when we feel these emotions, um, and it's too overwhelming, and it's a negative emotion, like let's say grief or sadness or even frustration, anger, right? We start to well up. Our tear ducts start to fill up with water, right, or with this substance, and then when we can't take it anymore, it just comes out of our eyes, right? Rolls down our cheek. Now, as human beings, right, crying is a very humanistic characteristic, right? And there was even an evolution of why we started to cry. Now, in any culture, anywhere you go, all over the world, anywhere, it could be anywhere where people are, crying is a nonverbal communication of sadness, right? It's a universal display of emotions. And as humans, you know, when we see someone cry, we are apt to comfort that person, feel sorry, right? Feel sympathy, empathy for that person, right? That's the normal thing, right? Sometimes it even makes us sad, being the one who's observing this other person that is crying, right? But sometimes some people don't feel anything, right? They're not affected emotionally by someone who is crying. Sometimes it might even make them feel uncomfortable, right? Um, I have firsthand experience in the latter. I was one of those people who would feel uncomfortable when someone was crying in front of me. I didn't know what to do, right? And when you're in this position, people ask me, "Is it normal? Is it normal that I can't cry? Is it normal that I can't feel?" I mean, being a human and experiencing different emotions, not being able to express, right, physically, empathetically, I would say yes. It is unnatural that you would not feel anything, right? because feeling or, you know, connecting is a very humanistic trait. We all do that. We're very social creatures. So when we see another person, maybe in pain or peril or sadness, grief, right? The innate thing to do is to go comfort them, right? Lend a helping hand, you know, help them make them help make them feel better, right? Those are natural instincts of us to do. But like I said, if you have issues or troubles doing that, then there might be some things blocking you from expressing or empathizing or connecting in that moment. Now, there are many things that could, be the cause of that, right? Um, but the major thing is detachment. Okay. Now, I'm just going to use myself as an example because, I grew up in a very, strict household. My father was very strict, right? First Asian, immigrant into the United States, the only boy. I had an older sister, and I was never allowed to show my emotions. There was no time to express any type of emotions in my household. Okay, so I grew up throughout my childhood not being able to express naturally how I felt, right? And a lot of us probably have gone through that. Um, I talk to a lot of my clients that go through the same thing, right? Their parents taught them not to show emotions, right? Boys don't cry, big girls don't cry. Crying is weak, being vulnerable is weak, right? Don't show them your tears. Like we've all heard of this. We've all heard these phrases that our parents tell us, right? And in actuality, in all honesty, we can't blame them for telling us that, right? That's that's from a long line of generational trauma because they didn't know about this type of emotional, reaction and how it could affect us later on in life, right? These unresolved traumas. I mean, as a child, when you're crying, because that's the only way you know how to express emotions because you don't know how to explain it yet, right? So the natural reaction is for you to just cry. And as a parent, right, if we've been taught generation after generation after generation to, man up or teach your children not to cry or express emotions, then that cycle of behavior or parenting is going to continue, right? Until someone breaks the cycle. But most times, that's a learned behavior, that's a conditioned behavior. So, our parents telling us not to cry and, saying those things to us, it's really not their fault. They probably went through the same things with their parent. All right. So, if you going through all that during childhood, right? And as you get older, as like I did, I got older, I became what I always call, or my wife deemed me as, emotionally disabled, right? I had no ability to connect. I was very detached from feeling sad. I was very detached from empathizing. I didn't even know what empathy meant until I met my wife, right? And I would actually get uncomfortable if someone was crying around me. I didn't know what to do. I was, your emotions are governed by your hypothalamus gland, right? And your limbic system, which then activates uh, the autonomous what do you call that? Auto. I forget the term, but the system that we can't control. There's a term for it. It starts with an A. It's slipping my mind right now. I apologize. But activates this system, and then it makes us feel all of these things, right? And then we start to react. Our body starts to react. Um, if you're really detached and you can't really connect with that emotion, you're not going to feel anything, right? I used to look at my then fiance or my daughter, my eldest daughter, and you know say those dreaded words like, "Why are you crying?" Right? Stop crying, right? Yes, I was that person. I was that father, that husband, that boyfriend that would say that, and I didn't know what to do. And A lot of us, unfortunately, um, that's pretty prevalent in today's society, right? We aren't connecting deeper enough within ourselves and our emotions, and we're so detached from feeling, actually feeling emotions, that we don't know what to do. We don't know how to comfort. We don't know how to open up and be sensitive. We don't know how to be vulnerable, right? We don't know how to sometimes even care, And even when I talk about this, I look back at my life and I look back at all those moments and I'm like, wow, that's, deep down inside, I knew something was off, right? I knew that I'm not supposed to be this way, and having my daughter, who was like 3 or 4 at the time, and just acting this way, it's not normal. I knew it wasn't normal, but I still continued to behave that way. I still continued to parent that way, and I still continued to not understand, my emotions, and I couldn't express it in a very healthy way. So, when you're detached like that, even, psychology tells us, I mean, that could be like the first signs of, depression, right? This detachment of emotions, or, you know, not being able to feel, being numb, emotionally numb. Those are all pretty much telltale signs of, deep depression, right? And like I said, in today's society, it's unfortunately, rampant, it's prevalent. And I think if you are aware that you're like that, it is, I think, the best idea to seek help or talk to someone, Usually people will tell us, people that's closest around us, right? Your spouse, I mean, your kids, your parents, your friends, like, I mean, if they're crying in front of you or they're feeling sad and you don't know what to do, I mean, it's like that's pretty much a huge indicator right there, right? So, when we start to open up, and this is what happened to me, right? When I started to open up and kind of let go of all those emotions, doing a lot of energy healing work on myself, right? A lot of introspection, reflection, journaling, releasing all of those pent up emotions, those trapped emotions, you begin to open up. You begin to let down your guard. You begin to trust. You begin to feel, right? And those initial moments when you start to feel, it could, it's pretty overwhelming. Um, I remember I had a release of an emotion, and a memory came up to my mind that I totally forgot about, and I was just crying hysterically. I mean, I was crying for a long time, and it felt like such a great relief to cry, because you feel so much better afterwards, right? And when you actually cry, there's two types of hormones that are released. One of them is called ACTH, and the other one's called eccephalin, I believe, eccephalin. And eccephalin is actually a natural painkiller, right? So every time you cry, you're actually just, secreting, or, you know, um, pushing out these natural painkillers that's running down your cheeks, right? So that's why it feels good when you cry. When you're feeling all these intense emotions and you're feeling overwhelmed, and then you start to cry, and after you cry, you feel a lot better, right? And physiologically, that's what's happening, right? You're actually letting go of all of these hormones, that makes you feel better. And like I mentioned before, there's even your tears, have a purpose, right? There's 3 types of tears that you cry, or that you create, or that your body produces. One is it's called the basal tears, right? And these are tears, I believe, that happen to lubricate your cornea, your eyes. And these are lubricating, tears that occur throughout the day, um, to help the health of your eyes, right? You can't have dry eyes. If you have dry eyes, they will definitely hurt, right? So your eyes are constantly making these type of tears to lubricate your eyes. And fun fact, you actually create like a measuring cup full of this type of tear. Okay, but it's not the tear that comes down your eyes, your cheeks. It's the tear that always like stays in your tear duct and just kind of lubricates that outer portion of your eye. All right. And then there's one called reflexive tears. And these are tears created when or produced when you get stuff that flies into your eyes, or like, when you're cutting onions, right? You start to tear, Even when you yawn creates a type of irritation that, makes you cry, right? So those are reflexive tears. And the last one, the one that we're talking about, is your emotional tears, right? When you feel so much emotion, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling sadness, when you're, sometimes even when you're feeling happy, right? You cry when you feel happy. These intense emotions that happen, you start to tear and they start to come down, right? And those emotions, I mean, they even call it psychic tears, right? They well up so much because of the intensity of the emotion. Your body's reacting. Your hypothalamus is activated, right? Um, and all these systems are firing off. Then you start to cry, right? And all the suppression happens when we get conditioned by some person or a caregiver, a parent, or someone along the way told us to stop crying, right? Now, energetically, that is not healthy, right? That is not what you are supposed to do. And like I said, I know that, in our generation, that's what we were taught. That's what we were conditioned with. But I think going forward, if you are aware that you have this type of upbringing or conditioning which made you, you know, feel this kind of emotional numbness when you see someone cry, or you feel uncomfortable, then it's time to, work on that, right? Open up a little bit, and then, show some of that vulnerability, because there's a lot of strength in that, right? Crying is not a sign of weakness, right? It's actually a sign of strength. And some people say, gosh, but Jay, I cry so much. I cry over everything. Like, I'm a crier. That's okay. In our line of work and energy healing, that means, you rarely have any trapped emotions, because that's a form of releasing energy, right? I mean, I'd rather have that than, be riddled with a whole bunch of trapped emotions and feeling numb and not being able to feel at all, right? I mean, emotional numbness is, very dangerous, because, like I said, those are really telltale signs of like deep depression, right? Food doesn't taste good, you get triggered easily, all your emotions come out as anger, right? You even get angry when someone's crying around you. Like it makes you snap, and you're just like, you get angry rather than being comforting. Like, I know this firsthand. I went through this so much. That was me, right? I felt that. I did that for so many years. So I understand. And even till today, when my daughter cries, or even when my wife cries, I still kind of sometimes go back, but I'm more aware now. And I practice on expressing, I practice on empathy, I practice on comforting, and I do, cry. Um, every time I talk to some of my clients and I ask them, especially the men, right? This has been ingrained, in our mind, in our deep down in our subconscious, even in our soul. Like, we have to be strong, right? The sight of tears means that you're weak. That's what we've been taught. And in actuality, that's, like I said, that's just years and years of generational behavior, right? So we have to get past that. We have to teach, our sons and our kids that emotions are okay, right? Um, it's totally okay to be vulnerable, right? There's a fine line between, being super melodramatic and very emotional, right? Because they're feeling sad, or, overwhelmed about a specific thing. So there's ways to handle these type of emotions, and crying is something that we should, allow, right? Especially in today's society. And when you go back to looking at even, infants, I mean, that's the only way of communication, right? If they want something, if they're in pain, all they do is cry, and that signals to tell you, hey, something's wrong. Take care of me, right? It's an innate reaction, I mean, if you're holding an infant and the infant's crying, like, you're not going to tell the infant, like, you're not going to get mad at the infant, and tell the infant to stop crying. You're going to be worried, right? And as that infant gets older, those reactions should be the same. Okay, you're crying about something. What's going on? How can we remedy this? Like, what is making you feel this way, right? We have to have that open dialogue to create a more compassionate, empathetic generation of human beings, right? Because, like I said, I mean, we have this whole perception of crying, and I mean, they have campaigns about these things, right? That, men need to be more vulnerable, men need to show more emotions, we need to be more emotionally available, right? Women, women are more apt to being vulnerable and opening up because it's in their DNA. They were made that way as far as being a nurturing counterpart of gender, right? I mean, because they have to care for their for our children, right? But men, on the other hand, we kind of have this hard, exterior and interior. But I think, if we, specifically for the men, if we, try to open up and be a lot more vulnerable, it can help us, create a deeper relationship, connect more, not only with ourselves, but with other people, right? Our children, our partners, being able to listen. So, crying is definitely an important humanistic reaction, and it's necessary. Okay, it's totally necessary. Okay, because when you're in this field of energy work, we don't want to have any trapped emotions, right? Because trapped emotions can lead to very, dangerous or detrimental things that will affect our overall health and well-being, right? And we don't want that. We don't want to, you know, worry about that later on in life. And if we continue to be numb and if we continue not to feel, right, you can tell. I mean, your energy changes, right? Your outlook changes, your perspective of life changes. You become this kind of just introverted, numb, just unhappy person. And that's not a way to live, right? We don't want that. Nobody wants that. We come into this earth and all we want is happiness and joy. So we have to learn how to be in touch with our emotions. We have to feel. And sometimes when you feel, you react. And this reaction is crying. Right? So crying is healthy. I think that should be a hashtag or something, right? Crying is healthy. Feeling is healing, right? And when you heal people, right? Cool. So, um, that is it for today. Today's episode of the ripple effect of healing. It's about crying. I urge and empower it, and hope that this is valuable for you, and got a little bit deeper understanding of how important it is to have this type of natural reaction. And if you don't, I would suggest talking to somebody about it, right? You can always contact me. You can go to our website, set up a discovery call, a 15-minute discovery call, right? And it's totally free. We can talk about it. Like I said, I came from an upbringing that I wasn't allowed to show any emotion. So I know how that feels. I know how it feels to transition into becoming this, um, sensitive, vulnerable person. Um, and it's liberating. It's a liberating feeling because now I feel that I can connect deeper to a lot of people. I can empathize, and when I feel something, I don't disregard it. Right? I let myself feel it. I'm very aware. And, after the feeling is gone, I feel fine. There's no more of this type of suppression of this energy or emotion, right? Because I don't want it to blow up on me later. Because that's what happens, right? We suppress it so much that later on down the line, it's going to become a trigger or something that's going to, make you blow up. And once you blow up, you'll say things, do things that you'll regret. And we don't want that, right? We don't want that. All right. So thank you so much for that. If this has been valuable, please share, share this live, share the video. Let me know what other things you'd like me to discuss here on the show. Like I said, we always talk about self-care, self-healing, and spirituality stuff, right? You can always follow our content on TikTok as well, just at JChantalancy. Shout out always to the Healing Tribe. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. How you doing, Flo, Corey, Doris, Lisa, Wendy? I see you. Cousin Jess. How you guys doing tonight? Tiffany, how's it going? How's it going? Marjorie, Angela, Alexis, good to see you tonight. Miss Fanny Pants, how are you, beloved? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, Healing Tribe came out strong. Then those of you that are on the live right now, is there any questions that I can answer for you? I got a couple minutes here. So if you have any questions about this type of emotion, and crying is an emotion, it's an actual emotion, right? You feel this emotion of crying. It's one of the emotions that we release when we do the, energy healing technique on people, right? So it's definitely something that, like I said, is very natural and it's needed, right? Don't ever, 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 ever hold back your tears. Okay, never. If you need to cry and let it out and go somewhere maybe on your own or take a time out, personal time out to do it, please go do it. Okay, don't let anyone tell you to stop. I mean, we need to change this mindset. We need to change this understanding of, and perception that crying is a sign of weakness, right? It's not. All right, it's definitely something, that needs to be done. Okay, definitely something needs to be done. Let me see here. What if you cry a lot and still have a lot of pent up trauma? How do you deal? Great question. So if you cry a lot, that just means you have a lot you have to release, right? A lot of trauma, a lot of emotions. There are such things as, people who are too sensitive, and that's okay, right? If you're too sensitive and you feel so much, there are ways to deal with those emotions by increasing your awareness, or by grounding yourself, right? So grounding is very important to those highly sensitive people like empaths or hypersensitive people, right? Grounding is very important and key in your daily self-care routine. But if you cry a lot, like you can just cry easily over everything, that just means that your body has all of this energy that's stored in there from all of these emotions that you didn't cry about, right? Because when you feel an emotion, what happens is, like I said, physiologically, all of these systems start to fire off. And an emotion is just a signaling system, right? Hey, I'm feeling this. Okay, I'm feeling sad. What am I going to do about it? Okay, well, my body's going to react physiologically. I'm going to create these tears, these psychic tears, and then when it gets to a point, I'm just going to start crying. Cool. That's what naturally happens. The energy is being released on its own. Now, if we suppress it, what happens, right? We're telling our subconscious, no, we don't want to feel. We're going to take this energy and we're going to store it away somewhere, right? And we're holding our tears in. Even that takes a lot of energy, just holding it in. And unfortunately, some people are used to that, right? They're just emotionless. They can't even express any type of even facial reaction. They're just, right? And when you get to that point, and if you stack on years and years and years of doing that, of course, later on in life, that energy has to go somewhere. So let's say in your childhood you never got a chance to express any emotion, but now you're 30, 40, 50 years old. Of course, all that's going to come out, whether it be tears or anger or reactions or triggers, whatever it is, that energy has to be released. Okay, so don't ever feel guilty or bad or think that you're weird or, you know, if you cry a lot, that's, like I said, it's a very normal reaction. Okay, it's just the society is putting this type of definition and perception on crying. That's why when hypersensitive people cry too much, like they're getting pressured because they think, oh, all these people think they might think I'm crazy, or they might think I'm weak, or they might say stuff to me, because that's how it is, right? Unfortunately. So never let other people control you or tell you to stop. Okay, like I said, if you're in my line of work, you want to cry. Okay, you don't want trapped emotions. you know all right, hope that answered your question. um I've held my emotions in for so long, like I'm scared to cry or to let it out. I understand. I totally understand that it could be a scary thing because you were conditioned that way, right? And it's even hard for us to feel because it's so overwhelming. It's scary to feel. It's scary to open up. It's scary to feel vulnerable. It's scary to let down your guard, right? But like I said, all of that we've been through, it's just very conditioning, and conditioning, a conditioning upbringing, right? We were taught that. We were told that. We were brought up that way, because what normally is supposed to happen, and I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm not like a psychologist or therapist or licensed doctor, any of that, right? I'm just speaking from my personal experience and it with my energy healing background, dealing with people who have been through a lot of emotional trauma and baggage, right? When we cry, when we feel these emotions, and let's say we have a partner or a husband, a wife, or parents, what the supporting people are supposed to do is give you a safe space to express. Okay, that's the number one thing, right? Like when my daughter cries or she tantrums or she's just expressing her emotions, right? I give her a safe space to express. I don't tell her to stop, right? I don't like, you know, tell her that crying is bad or, I don't even say wipe your tear. I don't even say that. I just let her, cry and express, and I'm there, right? I'm bent down on my knees and I'm there. I'm like, daddy's here for you. If you do, you need a hug, right? Because physical connection and reaction makes them feel safe. Same thing with adults. Like when we cry and when we express, or we're feeling like the one thing we're looking for is this connection of and a way to feel safe, that we can express our emotions and cry naturally without anyone telling us otherwise, right? And it feels good when someone does that, right? When someone gives you a hug, shoulder to cry on, that feels good. They feel safe. They feel secure. It's not so scary to be open and to let their guard down and express their emotions, right? Like I said, a lot of the society puts this pressure on us, and that's why it is scary, right? You have this fear of even feeling, you know? Does that make sense? So, it's going to take some time to develop the courage, sometimes to show our emotions, but I think it's something that is definitely necessary because, like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to continue your life not expressing or being in fear, because it's going to come back and haunt you in the worst ways, right? In the worst ways. And you're probably unaware that you're already doing it. If you have kids, you're probably unconsciously teaching your kids that already, right? Teaching your kids to like not to feel, right? Already ingraining that type of behavior in them. And that's, like I said, that could be bad later on for them, right? All right, great questions and great comments. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. I'm gonna take one more here, and then um, I'm a sensitive person for many years. That's how some people would That's how some people trigger at times. I would cry. Years that. That's how some people would trigger at times, and I would cry. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes having these emotions can definitely, or being hypersensitive can definitely be triggering. Because you're. I mean, my wife is hypersensitive, right? So she cries over everything. I mean, sometimes the emotions aren't even hers, right? It's like our clients that she's working on, but the emotion is so intense that because she's an empath, right? She feels other people's emotions as her own, so she'll just start crying, or when we're watching TV, or just having a thought, right? You can even have a thought of someone or something, and your body can react, and you can just start crying, right? That's normal too. Like I said, that's a normal humanistic behavior, right? That's what makes us actually special, right? We're special mammals that can display this type of communication, nonverbal communication through tears and being sad, that other humans can actually understand, right? And can help us or understand that we are feeling down or sad or whatnot, right? Does that make sense? All right. Um, awesome. So, thank you so much. Like I said, if this has been valuable for you, please share. Please share this video, or subscribe to to my channel, The Ripple Effect of Healing. I'm gonna be on here every single Monday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will be going on a road trip in the next couple of weeks, so you might see me with a different background in the back, but I plan on still doing it every week on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is The Ripple Effect of Healing. Always remember to stay blessed, be safe, and protect your energy at all costs. All right? See you guys next week. Peace.